If you're part of the entrenched D.C. establishment, you might want to sit down for this. The hammer of justice isn't just coming, it's already falling. Tonight, we've got exclusive reports of FBI and DOJ officials frantically calling criminal defense attorneys as Matt Gaetz' AG nomination sends shockwaves through Washington. But it only gets better. Entire agencies are facing deletion under the incoming administration. Military brass are facing potential court-martial over Afghanistan, and the swamp creatures are running scared. Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk are promising a complete dismantling of the federal bureaucracy. And for once, folks, this isn't just talk, it's action. Now, if you're suffering from the daily pain of watching corrupt bureaucrats escape accountability, I do have some breaking news. Top medical experts have unveiled a natural solution that's as unstoppable as Trump's coming justice wave. 100% drug-free Conolidine. Just as our justice system needs cleaning out, Conolidine naturally optimizes your body's pain-fighting response. While we watch the deep state squirm, you can finally find relief from your own daily battles. Don't let pain hold you back from witnessing this historic moment. Visit trycono.com/NNN for a limited time special offer. Like justice itself, relief is coming. And it's linked down below. Okay, we got lots to break down in this segment of the Raw feed. Elon Musk, 5 hours ago, look at this chart he posts. Immediate action is needed to stop the de facto bankruptcy of the United States. Elon Musk sees the writing on the wall. It took over 200 years for the U.S. debt to reach $12 trillion. 200 years, folks. 12 trillion is how much we added in 4 years between 2020 and 2024. $12 trillion. Thanks, Joe. We did it, Joe. And, of course, yes, a new era of accountability is dawning, and we have the list of who is next to feel the heat from the hammer of justice. Yes, Team Trump, Elon, and Vivek are armed with the Doge. Anthony Fauci is going to face the heat of the pandemic, facing questions over gain-of-function research. Christopher Wray, FBI Director Alejandro Mayorkas, Janet Yellen, Merrick Garland, Deb Haaland, Linda Thomas Greenfield, and Jennifer Granholm all are about to see the hammer of justice and Donald Trump laying it all out for us. Let's listen.
Here's my plan to dismantle the deep state and reclaim our democracy from Washington corruption once and for all. And corruption it is. First, I will immediately reissue my 2020 executive order restoring the president's authority to remove rogue bureaucrats, and I will wield that power very aggressively. Second, we will clean out all of the corrupt actors in our national security and intelligence apparatus, and there are plenty of them. The departments and agencies that have been weaponized will be completely overhauled, so that faceless bureaucrats will never again be able to target and persecute conservatives, Christians, or the left's political enemies, which they're doing now at a level that nobody can believe even possible. Third, we will totally reform FISA courts, which are so corrupt that the judges seemingly do not care when they are lied to in warrant applications. So many judges have seen so many applications that they know were wrong, or at least they must have known. They do nothing about it. They're lied to. Fourth, to expose the hoaxes and abuses of power that have been tearing our country apart, we will establish a Truth and Reconciliation Commission to declassify and publish all documents on deep state spying, censorship, and corruption. And there are plenty of them. Fifth, we will launch a major crackdown on government leakers who collude with the fake news to deliberately weave false narratives and to subvert our government and our democracy. When possible, we will press criminal charges. Sixth, we will make every inspector general's office independent and physically separated from the departments they oversee, so they do not become the protectors of the deep state. Seventh, I will ask Congress to establish an independent auditing system to continually monitor our intelligence agencies to ensure they are not spying on our citizens or running disinformation campaigns against the American people, or that they are not spying on someone's campaign like they spied on my campaign. Eighth, we will continue the effort launched by the Trump administration to move parts of the sprawling federal bureaucracy to new locations outside the Washington swamp. Just as I moved the Bureau of Land Management to Colorado, as many as 100,000 government positions could be moved out, and I mean immediately, of Washington to places filled with patriots who love America, and they really do love America. Ninth, I will work to ban federal bureaucrats from taking jobs at the companies they deal with and that they regulate. So they deal with these companies and they regulate these companies, and then they want to take jobs from these companies. Doesn't work that way. Such a public display cannot go on, and it's taking place all the time, like with Big Pharma. Finally, I will push a constitutional amendment to oppose term limits on members of Congress. This is how I will shatter the deep state and restore government that is controlled by the people and for the people. Thank you very much.
Okay, that was Donald Trump with his list, and we have more to get to. Vivek Ramaswamy, just 3 hours ago, he says, we recognize that the federal bureaucracy is the enemy. Well, we also acknowledge there are millions of good people who work within it, and yes, it's absolutely possible to dismantle that bureaucracy unsparingly while also respecting the individual human beings as we do it. Dismantle the bureaucracy. That's what stands out for me. And of course, as they work to dismantle the bureaucracy and Donald Trump sets up his cabinet, we're learning that a new shadow government, literally a shadow government, has been announced. A friend of mine sent me this post. I couldn't believe it when I saw it, but here it is. House Democrats are denying the results of the 2024 election, and they're trying to form a shadow government to defy and undermine President Trump. Listen to this.
Secretary, if Trump attempts to weaponize the justice system against his political opponents with Matt Gaetz at the helm, we could see incoming Senator Adam Schiff as our shadow attorney general, arguing against replacing our independent prosecutors with Trump loyalists. If Trump seeks to eliminate the Department of Education, Congresswoman Johanna Hayes, a former Teacher of the Year, could step up as Shadow Education Secretary to loudly defend public education in the United States. If Trump orders Marco Rubio to hand Ukraine and much of Eastern Europe to Russian President Vladimir Putin, Congressman Greg Meeks, as Shadow Secretary of State, could be a strong voice in support of maintaining international relationships and protecting democracy at home and abroad. Senator Michael Bennet as Shadow Treasury Secretary and Congresswoman Susan DelBene as Shadow Commerce Secretary could help ensure the middle class and small businesses have a voice in government and call out Trump's proposed tax cuts for billionaires and corporations. As Shadow Defense Secretary, Congressman Adam Smith, a great representative for the people of Washington and not a Fox News host, could counter Trump's threat to use military force against his political opponents and work to ensure that the Department of Defense stays loyal to the Constitution and not some wannabe dictator. And Senator Tammy Duckworth could argue against cuts to the Department of Veterans Affairs that would delay the benefits and care our service members have so rightly earned. If Trump hands over the EPA to big oil ally Lee Zeldin, we could see Congresswoman Kathy Castor pushing back for environmental protection and conservation to protect the air we breathe and the water we drink. And if Trump pushes to ban abortion nationwide, Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro could step in as Shadow Secretary of Health and Human Services to defend women's right to choose and argue against the gutting of Medicare by Trump and his cronies. Mr. Speaker, new times require new solutions. The shadow cabinet isn't just about opposing extreme MAGA attacks on our government. It's also about making clear what we stand for, not just what we're against. If Trump attempts to weaponize the justice system...
Folks, you know what? For how many years have we talked about a shadow government? Groups pulling the strings behind the scenes. We were called conspiracy theorists for even mentioning such a thing. But now here we have it. Right here on the floor of the House, announcing a shadow government to counter Donald Trump's administration. They're doing it right in the open, and they don't even care. They could have called this anything else, but they decided to call it this. And also, Insurrection Barbie, 3 hours ago, Democrat dark money advocacy groups are now putting together a strategy to try to stop RFK Jr. from being confirmed as the Health and Human Services Secretary. Apparently, 200 of them had a phone call on Monday where they discussed how they were going to stop RFK Jr. from being confirmed. One idea is to target and to threaten Republican senators to convince them not to vote yes on the appointment. They're going to target GOP moderates such as Lisa Murkowski and Mitch McConnell and Tom Willis. They're hiring teams in several states, which include Alaska, Idaho, Maine, and West Virginia, to lobby senators at the state and local levels so they can blackmail them into stopping RFK Jr. from being confirmed. That is what they are doing. Healthcare organization launching the Stop RFK War Room. This is directly from Politico. So they are working overtime to preserve whatever last pieces of power that they have, because they know RFK is going to come in to the Health and Human Services Department and he's going to start cutting. And it's about time. It's about time. It's actually about health and human services. All right? Not a summer of pride. Leading report, Trump's former strategist Steve Bannon says former Joint Chiefs of Staff General Mark Milley should be recalled to active duty and brought up on charges and court-martialed. What do you think about that? We've also got this. President Trump announcing that he is nominating former Congressman Sean Duffy of Wisconsin, who's also a Fox News contributor and a Fox Business co-host, to serve as U.S. Secretary of Transportation. Laura Ingraham, let's listen.
President Trump filling out his cabinet at a record pace, announcing another key pick tonight, and it's someone you're very familiar with, including on the angle. Sean Duffy has been named Transportation Secretary. He started his career as a DA in Wisconsin. Then he served in Congress for 8 years, coming in during the Tea Party wave.
I remember Sean Duffy. I met him a couple times. I met him once in Wisconsin. We got this. Okay, I thought this was a great post to share with you guys, because there's a new feeling that's sweeping the country. And this is Farzad. It says, someone told me, ever since the election, it feels like America from the 1980s. Can someone confirm? The 80s were awesome, weren't they? Yeah, my favorite decade. But it definitely feels like there is a cloud has been lifted. We can finally breathe freely again. The moment that Donald Trump was declared the victor, it seemed like a weight of demonic forces lifted off of this nation. And it is absolutely beautiful. Also, this Trump War Room posting, Donald Trump Jr. It's about time. It's about surrounding my father with people who are both competent and loyal. Let's listen.
On his promises. I think the reality this time is we actually know what we're doing. We actually know who the good guys and the bad guys are. We know who the guys are fake. And it's about surrounding my father with people who are both competent and loyal. They will deliver on his promises. They will deliver on his message. They are not people who think they know better as unelected bureaucrats. And so a big part of that process is just something that we didn't understand in 2016, where he came to Washington, D.C. He had no experience. He didn't know any of the 4,000 people that make up the Plum Book, which are the presidential appointees. So now we have a great understanding of that, and we can have a cabinet that is so powerful in delivering the America First message that the American people clearly voted for on November 5th. And I think.
Oh, yeah, it's about to happen, friends. We also got this. Just a couple days ago, Trump's pick for FCC chair, Brendan Carr, says the censorship cartel must be dismantled, including Facebook, Google, Apple, Microsoft, and others. It's about time. The censorship cartel needs to die. And too many people have been affected. I'm sure how many of your Facebook posts or your old X posts have been fact-checked, or you had like a little screen that went over it and said, you can't see this, see the fact check first. How many times has that happened to you? Well, those days are over. We're also learning this. The Boston mayor, Michelle Wu, says her city will not be cooperating with mass criminal illegal alien deportations. Yeah, let's see about that.
City can override.
What will Boston's response be if these mass deportations take place?
Yeah, look, elections have consequences, and the federal government is responsible for a certain set of actions, and cities, no individual city can reverse or override some parts of that. But what we can do is make sure that we are doing our part to protect our residents in every possible way, that we are not cooperating with those efforts that actually threaten the safety of everyone by causing widespread fear and having large-scale economic impact.
What will Boston...
Isn't she the same mayor that hosted a Christmas party and made sure that no white people were involved? Yeah, talk about inclusion, right? Tom Fitton also noting that conservative movement leaders are lining up in support of Matt Gaetz, which is a good sign. Border czar Tom Homan's top 3 priorities upon taking office. We're learning about some of these now.
A lot of people have wondered, how is this going to work? So how will it work?
Well, look, I think the president's been clear on the stage. As far as the deportation operation, we will prioritize public safety threats and national security threats because they pose the biggest danger to the United States. He's got 3 rails. So we'll do the deportation operation with the priorities I just talked to you out of the gate. That'd be the priorities. Second thing is secure that border. Lock that border down and catch and release and secure the border. The third rail is we got over 300,000 missing children. Over 500,000 children have been trafficked into the United States. This administration released them to unvetted sponsors, and they can't find 300,000 of them. And based on my 3.5 decades, some of these children are in forced labor. We already found some in forced labor. Some are in forced sex trafficking. Some are living with pedophiles. We need to save these children. So that's going to be the third rail.
But a lot of people have wondered.
Save the children. Donald Trump Jr. Dear Democrats, if you weren't insane last election, if you didn't play every game imaginable, Trump would be done in 60 days. He would have had 4 years of reasonable stability with people, slow rolling his policies, doing your bidding. Now you'll have 4 years of real change. And I actually did a quote tweet of this because I've been saying this. If they had just not stolen the 2020 election, Donald Trump would be on his way out of office right now. It would be over. And then you'd have a primary of an open primary of Republicans, an open primary of Democrats. May the best man win. May the best idea come to the surface. But no. Yes, elections do have consequences. And now you're about to learn what those consequences are. You mess with the bull, and now you're about to get the horns. Also, some more good news on this front. The Georgia court has now halted arguments in the Trump election case. A Georgia appeals court canceled the December 5th hearing of DA Fani Willis' election case against Trump, offering no reason. No reason. We're just going to cancel it. No reason. Trump sought to disqualify Willis over an alleged conflict of interest, but a lower court found no grounds for removal. The future of the case remains uncertain, according to the Associated Press. Yes. Goodbye, Fani Willis. And then we have this. Did you guys see this one? The Arizona governor, following lockstep with the Boston mayor, Arizona governor, the one who was installed, the one who stole it from Kari Lake, Katie Hobbs says she will not be allowing the Trump administration to carry out mass deportation in the state. Well, if Donald Trump declares a national emergency, honey, you have no say.
Harm our community.
As you know, Trump has promised that he would carry out mass deportations on day 1 of his presidency. Your state is estimated to have 250,000 undocumented immigrants. Some Democrats in your state, like Phoenix Mayor Kate Gallegos, say that she wouldn't allow police to be used to carry out this plan. Would you, as governor, allow state police and National Guard to carry out mass deportations?
We will not be participating in misguided efforts that harm our communities, and I've been incredibly clear about that.
So you disagree with mass deportations and the fact that the president-elect says that's what he's going to be working on day 1?
Well, I think that those efforts are going to divert needed resources that we need here on these drug interdiction and smuggling and trafficking efforts to keep harm out of our communities. We need those resources here, and coming here today and seeing this operation firsthand just underscores that working in partnership here is how we can best secure the border.
What would worry you the most, Governor, about mass deportations?
Well, I think the diversion of law enforcement from the work that they do every day to keep our communities safe. People hiding in fear. We saw that under previous state policies here, and it harms communities. It tears families apart, and that's not gonna happen on my watch.
Yeah, she sounds real confident there. Real confident there, Hobbs. No, buckle up. The hammer of justice is coming down hard. Kevin O'Leary weighing in on the Elon Musk, Vivek Ramaswamy over at the Department of Government Efficiency. Let's listen what Mr. Wonderful has
8
to
to
say
10%.
about this.
Here's a breakdown of federal spending, just so that folks at home know where their tax dollars are going. Health care, 25%, Social Security, 20 to 25%, defense, 13 to 15%, safety net programs, 10%, interest on the national debt, 8 to 10%. The way it breaks down is 61% of spending is mandatory, 13% is on debt service, 26% is discretionary, which really will be the target of DOGE. And that is a small piece of the pie to try to wring $2 trillion out of, Kevin.
I don't know. I think healthcare could be another place of savings. We haven't really used any technology there yet. We haven't really digitized medical records. We really haven't brought a mandate of AI into that. I think we could save a lot of money. The U.S. has one of the worst IRR returns on healthcare spending. When you can compare it to some of the European countries like Switzerland or England or France, they do a much better job. But they share the records on a much more ubiquitous basis that we do. We're always concerned about privacy, but I think we could fix that too. But I like looking at everything. I don't see any reason why these two can't just release the hounds and go nuts. Everybody's interested to find out what they're going to see, and I'd like to hear it myself, because maybe it's a me.
Release the hounds! Release the hounds!
Test on Social Security. We have to fix this because the deficit's getting a little big right now, and the bond market's starting to get a little uneasy in the 10-year. I worry about that.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question that Social Security is something that might need to be looked at. But Simpson Bowles said, let's look at that. And Republicans in Congress said, nope, not going to touch that. So,
Mr. Wonderful. Joseph Pino. Dear Senate Republicans, Matt Gaetz can take office for 210 days without your confirmation. That's plenty of time to review your corruption, confirm, or say hello to the microscope. Yours truly, MAGA. And this is, if you're a federal agency, you better watch out, because Elon and Vivek and the Donald are coming with their blowtorches of justice. Mike Johnson, he's got a message, though, for the migrants. Yeah, well, you got Boston and Arizona. No, we're not going to comply. Well, let's see what Mike Johnson has to say.
Rural area. Well, look, I'm not sure what the specific promise is. I know the president said that he wanted to engage in the largest mass deportation effort probably in history, because that is what is called for. I mean, you admitted yourself that maybe as many as 20 million undocumented persons, illegal aliens in the country. So this is a concern of communities all across America, not just the big cities, but rural areas as well, because they've been sent all over the nation. We need to send a message to people around the world that the open door is now being closed, and that we're going to restore law and order. And I think that's what the American people are very hopeful and expecting that we will deliver upon. And we will.
The door is now being closed. Yeah, so on the right there, Sean Duffy, he is the new transportation secretary. On the left, you have the outgoing transportation secretary. And in a moment of chest feeding. How beautiful. Donald Trump Jr. has a message to the Senate Republicans who are opposing Trump's picks. He was speaking with Charlie Kirk. Let's listen in.
Don, what is your message to Senate Republicans that might be thinking to vote against your father's cabinet picks?
The reality is for people in the Senate, and they've been. I love the new guys that have come in. I think we're really reforming the Senate. The Senate is where Republican values go to die. They roll over, they appease the swamp. They would rather have a nice article written about them in the Washington Post, people who would put them in the gulags if they could otherwise. There's really a mandate. You only have control of the Senate because of Donald Trump. I mean, I do think we had some great candidates, but they would not have won. Bernie Moreno is a good friend. He would not have beaten a 50-year veteran of the swamp, Sherrod Brown, in Ohio, if it wasn't for Trump. That mandate, being able to ride on those coattails, that doesn't take away from Bernie. But those people have to understand. John Thune in leadership has to understand he's only the Senate majority leader because of Donald Trump. Without that, you'd be relegated to insignificance. You'd be in the background. You wouldn't have any power. You better make sure that you're confirming his appointments because the American people sent a very clear mandate to them. They want change. They want to see what's going on. It is no longer business as usual in Washington, D.C. So they better understand that. And I hope they do. I'd gladly extend that olive branch, despite what a lot of these guys, even on our side, tried to do to me, tried to do to my father. But they have to understand this is a movement of Donald Trump. This is an America First movement. This is not your 1940s Republican Party anymore. It's different. There's a seismic shift. It's palpable to everyone who's watching, and it's great to see people buy into that. And I hope that Senate leadership truly understands that and embraces that. And if they do, I think they're going to continue to be able to have that majority. Their people will continue to vote for them. Without it, if they try to slow play that, if they try to do what they did the last few years under Mitch McConnell's leadership, they're going to lose all of that power, and it's going to go elsewhere.
Don.
Yeah, you guys better be paying attention about that mandate. Georgia court has put the brakes on a criminal case against President-elect Donald Trump over the 2020 election in that state. Wah, 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 wah. Fonnie Willis. Bye-bye. Here's more. Molly Hemingway delivering an absolutely masterful defense of Matt Gaetz as Attorney General. Let's listen. Molly Hemingway of the Federalist.
Right. Matt Gaetz was nominated for this position because we have a problem with the Department of Justice. For the last 8 years, they have run roughshod over rule of law in this country. They have prosecuted political opponents. They ran the Russia collusion hoax. And too many people in Washington, D.C. did not stand up against what was happening there. And many Americans are upset about it. Matt Gaetz is one of the most effective people at fighting that Russia collusion hoax and other information operations, whether it was the Brett Kavanaugh information operation, the Donald Trump Russia collusion hoax information operation, or the one that is referenced here, which is something that the FBI and Department of Justice, which hate Matt Gaetz, looked into and cleared him of any wrongdoing. The idea that this is about the issue is corruption. It's the Department of Justice's corruption. And people are sick and tired of people in Washington, D.C. doing nothing as these people tried to destroy the country and getting upset at someone who actually might root out the corruption there. We don't have a Department of Justice. We have a Department of Injustice. And that's why you get Matt Gaetz as a nominee.
Let's go. Man, remember what they did to Brett Kavanaugh? Goodness, who could ever forget that? Now, here's an interesting post that I noticed here. It was made by an account called Burning Bright. And it was an interesting parallel to what we're witnessing today. Now, they bring up that in the 1960s, John and Robert Kennedy formed an unofficial advisory council called XCOM-M, the Executive Committee of the National Security Council. It was put together to keep peacemaking efforts siloed from the Joint Chiefs and the intel agencies. Unused to being kept in the dark, these administrative vultures colloquially referred to this cadre of Kennedys and childhood friends from the Boston area, including Kenneth O'Donnell, as the Irish Mafia. By going around the military-industrial complex and the news media, these men established back channels to Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev in order to avoid the war the invisible enemy in both nations were salivating over. As tensions rose, Robert famously said, "Can the effing chiefs," as tempers flared over war peace. war for peace. Reconcile this with Trump's current appointments. It may not be Irish, but we've got a new American mafia forming. We went around them like nobody's gone around them before. The deep state is the most affected party. So we're witnessing strategies that were employed by JFK and RFK, and of course, RFK Jr. famously joining the cabinet. Senator Chris Coons, though, he recognizes what's about to happen with Doge. And he appears to be jumping on the bandwagon, so to speak, because he knows he better fall in line, or else his special pet projects are all going to get cut too. Let's listen to what he has to say.
Embraced.
Some Democrats are getting on board with the idea of Doge, even if they think the goal of cutting $2 trillion of government spending is a little too lofty.
But they could save tens or even hundreds of billions of dollars. Depending on how it's structured and what they do, this could be a constructive undertaking that ought to be embraced.
And as you know, John, Musk is famous for cutting costs at his companies like Tesla, SpaceX, and there's some reporting that when he bought X, or Twitter back then, he went line by line through their budgets and cut all sorts of costs out, looking to do the same thing with the federal government.
I was saying to Mr. Wonderful this morning that if Elon Musk could successfully leverage X to embarrass people into getting off the government dole, then that $44 billion he paid for it would probably turn out to be a bargain.
Well, if you remember, Elon Musk posted made a post on X a couple days ago, basically saying that this Doge, this department, is going to have a website where they're going to list all of the ridiculous government spending. And you'll be able to see it all, line by line. Finally, some actual transparency for the federal government. And you'll be able to vote on which little programs deserve the axe. Oh, it is going to be glorious to watch. And now we're learning this, of course, Donald Trump pushing hard for Matt Gaetz as the Attorney General. President-elect Donald Trump is making personal calls to senators, urging them to confirm former Representative Matt Gaetz as his Attorney General. And here's why it matters. Because Trump is not just asking, he is demanding. This is a clear power move signaling to Senate Republicans that Gaetz is his guy and he won't take no for an answer. Senator Kevin Cramer spilled the news. Trump believes Gaetz has the fearlessness and ferociousness to shake up the DOJ. He's not playing games. Trump is putting his political capital on the line for this. Another senator confirmed Trump's direct calls, urging colleagues to fall in line. So why it's huge? Trump is going all in on Gaetz, betting big on someone seen as polarizing. The message, loyalty pays and resistance is futile. So what do you think? Is Gaetz the fearless reformer the DOJ needs, or is this too much too soon? Well, I think it's exactly what we need. And now we're learning this. Grant Cardone is considering running for governor to unseat Gavin Newsom. That would be something interesting. We should probably put a call into him and get an interview scheduled. We were supposed to interview him on the day of the election, but his schedule got thrown out, so he does owe me one. Maybe this is the topic that we should bring him in on. But he's asking California, would you help me? Would you help him? I think anybody other than Gavin Newsom, and I think Grant Cardone would be an excellent choice. Also, of course, we know this now. Sean Duffy is the next transportation secretary. The Doge cometh. Be afraid, feds. Be very afraid. Red State putting out this article. And also the left-wing media having a meltdown over President Trump's pick for AG. Oh, that's, of course, because they're afraid. They know that they're all going to get exposed. Let's listen to the meltdown. This is a montage.
Well, 8 years ago.
It's time for a montage. All right, here we go. Sorry.
Donald Trump promised to deliver to his administration the best people. He delivered the worst people to ever work in a presidential administration. And now he is delivering even worse people.
Matt Gaetz is literally the worst pick in the world for Attorney General.
People at the Justice Department who just use the word insane.
Simply gobsmacking. I mean, how could he?
This is a crazy pick. This is a dangerous pick.
He will turn the
Department of Justice into a petting zoo.
We've seen people today, our fellow reporters, crying, hugging in the hallways.
This kind of appointment is really striking fear and trepidation in the hearts of the career civil servants over there.
No one is endorsing this.
Tulsi Gabbard, insofar as she is known at all, is known as a spreader of Syrian and Russian disinformation.
Russian television, which is a propaganda machine, has joked that she's a Russian asset. I don't know that for a fact, but that is something they've talked about.
Congressman Debbie Wasserman-Schultz calling her a Russian asset.
Gabbard has a history of spreading Russian conspiracy theories and propaganda. Russian conspiracy theories and propaganda.
Sympathetic views towards Russia.
Pushing propaganda for Russia. Critics.
Okay, hang on. There's about another minute left of this. How crazy it is that they're talking about Tulsi Gabbard pushing Russian propaganda and conspiracy theories when the media, all these channels, all these networks that you're seeing, CNN, MSNBC, that's all that they have done since Donald Trump took office. Pushing Russian propaganda and conspiracy theories, saying that Russia interfered in the election. I mean, this is a masterclass in deception and disinformation from these networks, and they are terrified. They are terrified of what is about to happen. But folks, I'm here for it. I'm here for every minute of it.
That Gabbard would be a threat to America's national security.
You can't even make this stuff up. The Tulsi Gabbard, the Peter Hegseth nomination.
Donald Trump has picked Fox News host Pete Hegseth to lead the U.S. military. We're going to look at Hegseth's role in Trump's controversial pardons of accused war criminals.
Trump's proposed Secretary of Defense defends war criminals and displays tattoos associated with white nationalism.
White supremacist and extremist tattoos on his body.
This is someone who, is known to be a white supremacist, known to be an extremist.
The shockwaves from those cabinet selections are still reverberating here in Washington tonight, where gasps could be audibly heard on Capitol Hill.
They are well outside any conceivable norms for competence and character.
Thank you, MRC Newsbusters, for that clip. But this is what the American people voted for. Texas Representative Troy Nehls, here's what he has to say.
To embrace his mission and his goals and objectives, whatever that is, we need to embrace it. All of it. Every single word in his mission statement, we need to embrace. If Donald Trump says jump 3 feet high and scratch your head, we all jump 3 feet high and scratch our heads. That's it.
Yeah, you guys all better. Elon Musk tweeting this just 2 days ago. There will be consequences for those who pushed foreign interference hoaxes. The hammer of justice is coming. Here is Steve Bannon saying that my strongest recommendation to the president on day one is recall General Milley to active duty and make him face a court-martial. Listen.
Would support this. Your thoughts, particularly the Defense Department, where right now they're going through and they have their lawyers saying, oh, we really got to figure out what's a lawful order. Didn't we go through this with Milley? And my strongest recommendation to the president, I think Mike Davis would support this, is to on day one, recall General Milley to active duty, which the president's commander-in-chief has full authority to recall him to active duty and make him face a court-martial. Court-martial him. And let's see what a military tribunal says about Milley's activity as chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff from June of, let's pick some random dates, from June of 2020 until the 19th, the 20 high noon on the 20th of January of 2021. Eric Prince, your thoughts?
Yeah, he acknowledges that he was in contact with the Chinese counterparts. Is that really within the Constitution for him to be doing that? I don't think so. That's not his role. Look, there needs to be a culling of the senior ranks. You have as many general officers now as we did during World War II when we had 10 times as many troops. So there's a reason we have so much bureaucracy and so much ineptitude. It's because it's a massive blob of a committee. President Trump needs to consolidate and severely reduce the massive Pentagon bloat, both civilian population and especially amongst general officers and colonels. We need a lot more teeth and a lot less tail. You have about 12 tail for every tooth you have in the Pentagon right now. So the whole Pentagon needs to go on a diet, including Mark Milley.
Get that up. What about this over the Pentagon? They're going through right now and getting the lawyers to see about the quote-unquote lawful orders. How intense is the obstruction of President Trump as he tries to put in America First policies in the Pentagon? He has not announced his Pentagon, his Secretary of Defense. He has announced that Congressman Walz will be National Security Advisor. Marco Rubio will be the Secretary of State. But talk to me about the Pentagon itself at the second and third tiers going through right now and trying to Trump-proof the Pentagon.
Well, first, let me talk about Mike Waltz. It's a fantastic pick. And just contrast him to Jake Sullivan, who is a Senate staffer who never did anything difficult or dangerous in his life. He literally hung around the swamp and floated to the surface, versus Mike Waltz, who is a combat leader. His men loved him, served well in Army Special Forces. That's the right person to be helping guide the president's policy about sending people, committing troops or not, as to what is America's interest. The second and third layer of bureaucracy in the Pentagon, look, the whole thing needs a massive culling. They're used to kind of doing their own thing because you have an entire military that has got used to a culture of no accountability. No one's been fired for the debacle that's Afghanistan or Somalia or Yemen or any of these things. So nobody's used to being fired. There's nothing like a massive firing that needs to reshape their minds.
Oh, it's going to be a massive reshaping. Trump's team is getting list of all the U.S. military officials involved with the botched Afghanistan withdrawal. Charges of treason are being considered for some military officers. No justice, no peace. Who can ever forget this famous moment when all those Afghans were running along the tarmac at the military base celebrating? Yes, but President Donald Trump, elect Donald Trump, reportedly might include court-martial for top Biden administration military officials responsible for the deadly Afghanistan withdrawal. Newsmax reporting. Vivek Ramaswamy, this is awesome. This is great, folks. Oh, this is like one of my favorite clips that I just saw. Listen.
We expect mass.
Are you expecting to close down entire agencies like President Trump has talked about the Department of Education, for example? Are you going to be closing down departments?
We expect mass reductions. We expect certain agencies to be deleted outright. We expect mass reductions in force in areas of the federal government that are...
He said deleted outright. Delete.
We expect mass reductions. We expect certain agencies to be deleted outright. We expect mass reductions in force in areas of the federal government that are bloated. We expect massive cuts among federal contractors and others who are overbilling the federal government. So, yes, we expect all of the above. And I think people will be surprised by, how quickly we're able to move with some of those changes, given the legal backdrop the Supreme Court has given us.
Oh, man, the swamp is freaking out. He's like, we're just going to delete whole bureaucracies. The swamp is fighting hard, though, to avoid being drained. Yes, Elon Musk saying this after labeling Tulsi Gabbard an apologist for Putin. Russiagate conspirator and laptop hoaxer John Brennan warns that she won't be apolitical. John Brennan, really?
So many of our...
So let me just start with Tulsi Gabbard, because you served as the CIA director for 4 years. What would having her in charge or in the role of director of national intelligence mean for the intelligence apparatus of the U.S. government?
Well, I think there's so much uncertainty about what Ms. Gabbard would bring to the job. As you pointed out, she has been an apologist for Vladimir Putin and Bashar al-Assad. So many of her substantive comments, as well as previous actions, have called into question whether or not she has a good understanding of global politics and the U.S. role there. But
John Brennan, this guy is not sleeping easy these days.
So she doesn't have any experience in intelligence. She has never served in the intelligence community. And the director of national intelligence is somebody who sits on top of the 18 departments and agencies and needs to orchestrate these agencies so that they collaborate, so that they coordinate, so that they're able to pursue the national security priorities in an...
And the only thing that those intelligence agencies did was collude against Donald Trump. Remember that?
fashion. So they need to have some understanding of the human intelligence, technical signals intelligence, geospatial intelligence, and other types of things, and she has none of that. And third, she doesn't have the executive leadership experience of running a large organization. And under the Director of National Intelligence comes the National Counterterrorism Center, National Counterintelligence Center, Counterproliferation, Malign Influence Center as well. So there's just a lot of responsibilities. And so the people, the professionals that are in these 18 intelligence agencies want to have confidence that the person who sits on top of them, and that person by law is the president's principal intelligence advisor, is going to be carrying out the duties in a qualified way, but also in a apolitical, objective fashion. And I think there are serious questions that have been raised about Ms. Gabbard's ability to do that based on her lack of experience, as well as her very questionable comments that she has made and statements.
Cry harder, Brennan. And we're learning this, that top FBI and DOJ officials are reportedly reaching out to criminal defense attorneys as they prepare for the potential arrival of the Trump administration. Well, bring it on. It is time to really drain the swamp. So the signs are unmistakable, folks, from Gaetz's appointment to the mass lawyering up at the DOJ from Vivek's agency deletion plans to the potential court martials. This is what draining the swamp looks like in real time. But here is the question I want you to wrestle with in our comment section. Is this just the beginning? What other agencies should be on the chopping block? And while you're sharing your thoughts, don't forget to gear up for the revolution at our new merch shop. Nothing sends a clearer message to the deep state than walking around in our exclusive MAGA Avengers gear at shop.nextnewsnetwork.com. It's linked below. Show them you're not just watching history, you're part of it.